They found an ancient city sitting on the seafloor off the coast of Gujarat, India, streets still mapped in a grid, stone walls standing, structural blocks weighing over 5 tons precisely cut, precisely placed. The water above them is only 40 feet deep. A recreational diver could reach the top of these buildings in a single breath. This city was already ancient when the pyramids were being built, and what scientists found inside it would rewrite everything. For decades, mainstream archaeology held a firm consensus. Organized human civilization began approximately 5,500 years ago. Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent. That was the agreed starting point the moment humans first built cities, developed writing, and began living in structured societies. The Indus Valley Civilization, one of the oldest acknowledged urban cultures, was dated to around 2600 BCE. That was the boundary. Nothing came before it in that region. The National Institute of Ocean Technology accepted that boundary too until January 2002, when their marine survey vessels were dragging acoustic equipment along the seafloor of the Gulf of Combat, off the northwestern coast of India. They weren't looking for a city, they were conducting routine pollution monitoring. But the sonar images that came back didn't show sediment. They showed geometry, straight lines, right angles, grids that don't exist in nature. Dr. S. Badrinarayanan, who led the geological survey team, later said the structures covered an area of nearly 5 miles, not scattered ruins, a city, laid out with the deliberate logic of people who knew exactly what they were building. The question was, when did they build it? The first answer came from the artifacts. Divers recovered wood samples, pottery fragments, and human remains from the seafloor directly within the site. The National Institute of Ocean Technology sent them to 2 independent laboratories, the National Geophysical Research Institute in Hyderabad and the Birbal Sahni Institute of Paleosciences in Lucknow. The radiocarbon dates came back. The wood was 9,500 years old. Official science was quick to respond. Skeptics argued the samples were driftwood debris carried by ocean currents and deposited on the seafloor over centuries. Natural contamination, coincidence, not evidence of habitation. But here's what stopped the researchers. The artifacts weren't scattered. They were contextual, found inside structures, near walls, in positions consistent with deliberate placement. Dr. Badrinarayanan told reporters the pattern was unambiguous. This wasn't debris. This was deposition. Then the geological record made it worse. Sea level data confirmed the Gulf of Combat was dry land until approximately 9,000 years ago, when post-glacial flooding submerged the entire coastal shelf. Which meant someone built this city before the flood came. But that first discovery was only the beginning. Dr. Kuldeep Mathur, senior archaeologist at the Archaeological Survey of India, examined the recovered structural blocks in detail. The measurements were precise. Individual stones ranged from 2 to 8 meters in length. Several weighed in excess of 5 tons. The cutting angles were consistent, not chipped or broken, but dressed, shaped deliberately by tools. Official science said stone cutting at that scale required metal implements. Metal working, by accepted timelines, didn't exist in this region until 3000 BCE at the earliest. But the geological dating said these structures were submerged by 7000 BCE. That is a 4,000-year gap that no existing model can bridge. Dr. Michael Cremo, researcher and co-author of Forbidden Archaeology, reviewed the site data and noted the structural complexity was inconsistent with any known hunter-gatherer or early agrarian society of that period. These weren't primitive shelters. The grid layout suggested urban planning, drainage consideration, directional orientation, allocated zones. Furthermore, divers recovered a human tooth from within the site boundary. Forensic analysis dated it to 9,300 years ago. Someone lived there, someone built there. And the deeper researchers looked, the less the timeline held. When researchers returned to the acoustic sonar data in 2004 and mapped the full site geometry, something became impossible to ignore. The city wasn't built near the water, it was built around it. The grid lay out those straight lines, those right angles that first appeared on the sonar wasn't a residential pattern. It was an engineered pattern. Channels ran between structural zones in deliberate intervals. Dr. Badranarayanan's team identified what appeared to be a riverine management system. Controlled water flow, directed drainage, infrastructure that didn't just accommodate a river, it used one. This didn't fit into any existing archaeological model for 7000 BCE, anywhere on Earth. Because engineered water management at urban scale, the kind seen in Mohenjo-Daro, in early Mesopotamia, wasn't supposed to exist for another 4,000 years. And here's what reframed everything that came before. The Saraswati River, a waterway described extensively in ancient Vedic texts, long dismissed by historians as mythology, ran directly through this region before vanishing underground thousands of years ago. The city the sonar found may have been built on its banks, which means the myths were remembering something real. This wasn't just about a submerged city off the coast of Gujarat. This was about the entire foundation of what we call human civilization. If the Gulf of Combat site is what the evidence suggests, a planned, engineered urban settlement existing 9,500 years ago, then the story of how humanity developed is wrong. Not incomplete, not missing a chapter, wrong in its fundamental sequence. Because the standard model doesn't just place city building later. It places the cognitive capacity for city building later. The assumption embedded in every archaeology textbook is that humans of 7000 BCE lacked the organizational sophistication to construct drainage systems, dress 5-ton stone blocks, and grid plan a settlement across 5 miles of river delta. The combat site says otherwise. Dr. S. Badranarayanan stated publicly that if the dating holds, this discovery would necessitate a complete reassessment of South Asian prehistory. Not a revision, a reassessment. And the implications extend further. Vedic civilization, among the oldest literary traditions on Earth, describes a golden age of advanced human settlement that mainstream academia has always categorized as allegory. The seafloor of the Gulf of Combat may be the closest thing to physical evidence that it wasn't. Here is what is confirmed. The structures exist. The sonar images are real. The radiocarbon dating of recovered artifacts has been independently verified at 9,500 years. The geological record confirms the Gulf of Combat was dry, habitable land before post-glacial flooding submerged it. The human tooth recovered from within the site boundary has been dated to 9,300 years ago. Here is what remains unknown. Who built it? How they cut and placed stones that weighed more than 5 tons without any tool technology that archaeology can account for. Why the grid layout matches engineering principles that weren't supposed to exist for another 4 millennia. And whether the dozens of similar anomalies detected further along the Gujarat coastline represent isolated structures or the outermost edges of something far larger still buried beneath the sediment. In 2007, the Indian government approved expanded underwater excavation of the site. That excavation has never been fully completed. The sonar equipment that first photographed those streets in January 2002 is still the clearest picture anyone has ever taken of what lies down there. 40 feet of water, a civilization underneath. And almost no one has gone back to look. Those streets were laid out before writing existed, before Egypt, before Mesopotamia, before everything history told us was first. Somewhere beneath the Gulf of Combat, the walls are still standing. The grid is still there, patient, undisturbed, waiting for someone to come back and ask the question that the sonar first raised in 2002. Not how it was buried, but how it was built. Thanks for watching. Please like, comments, and subscribe.